I thought what we would do, you may all know each other, but I don't know all of you, so if you could say your name and where you work.
Mary Plain, Baltimore Symphony.
Kevin Kramer, the Phoenix Symphony.
Dina Marie Garcia de Fresno, Swedish Radio Symphony. I'm too tired to speak.
Good excuse.
Lisa Gudris, Pittsburgh. Jan Wilson, League of American Orchestras.
Julia Pierkowski, United States Marine Band.
Katie Somro, Northwestern University.
Amy McCann, Houston Symphony.
Mark Fadulich from the Colburn School.
Georg Obrecht, Tonhalle Orchestra Zurich, Switzerland.
Kim Gilmore, Toronto Symphony.
I'm Erica Kirsch, I work at McGill University in Montreal.
We're so international here. I have to be on my best behavior. At the earlier session, I made all my mistakes, so I will make none at this session. I worked it out. So I'm Kyle Smith. I am the curator of the Fleisher Collection of Orchestral Music at the Free Library of Philadelphia. That's the long title there. I have to say all that because the Free Library of Philadelphia houses the Fleisher Collection. It wasn't always that way, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. But we are really an example of a public-private partnership, even before I think they had that term, a public-private partnership. So I'm on the phone one morning, and I don't know if this happens in Sweden when someone from the United States calls, but I pick up the phone, and there's like a little bit of a delay, enough of a delay that you think, okay, this is someone from another country and maybe on the other side of an ocean, and there's a little bit of a hiss, you know, so you can tell that it's going through, the signal is going through a lot of things. So I'm on the phone, and the person asks me, do we have the Charvenka 4th Piano Concerto? Now, I had been assistant curator, I think, for just a couple of years. And so I didn't know if we had the Charvenka Piano Concerto or not. Come on in, grab a chair. So I didn't know if we had the Charvenka Piano Concerto or not, the 4th Piano Concerto. I knew the name Charvenka. I knew that much. I knew there were 2 Charvenkas. I knew that much. But I said, you know what, I'm going to have to check for you. And at that point, our hold buttons actually didn't work all the time. So we never put anyone on hold. We just kind of put the phone down. And the person probably heard me opening up the card catalog, because we had a card catalog. We have a card catalog, which we still use. And I looked, and we had the 4th Piano Concerto of Charvenka, scores and parts, the 3rd Piano Concerto, the 2nd and the 1st Piano Concerto. So I go back to the phone, and I said, yes, we do have the 4th Piano Concerto. And there was this gasp from the other end of the phone, and I could tell now that the person was English, British, because of the accent. And they said, we've been looking all over the world for this. I can't believe that you have this. And I said, well, you should have, called us first, obviously. But and they said, so you have the scores and parts. Come on in, have a seat. And I said, yeah, we've got all the parts. They said, oh. So what had happened was, it turns out it was Hyperion Records. They had booked the recording session. They had booked the pianist, the conductor, and the orchestra. The thing that they didn't get was the music. And it was like in a month. And so we had the music. They asked, the fellow then asked, I'm almost afraid to ask, have you ever heard of Emil von Sauer? Do you have his 1st piano concerto? Well, we had that too. So the next year, Hyperion Records came out with part of their romantic piano series with Stephen Huff playing the Emil von Sauer 1st Piano Concerto, the Charvenka 4th Piano Concerto, and it won the Gramophone Record of the Year award. And that music came from the Fleisher Collection. Now, I tell this story to library board members and people who come into the Fleisher Collection. For good or for ill, the Fleisher Collection sits right next to the executive offices. So when people come in for board meetings and stuff, a lot of times they kind of wander into the Fleisher Collection because they're 10 minutes early or whatever. Or the director might bring them in because he wants to show them, you know, a special collection in the library. And I've often told this story to impress the people who are in charge of the library. I don't tell that to impress you, because you are all professionals in the business. And if you all are not grizzled veterans, you probably, very little impresses you now. So I don't tell you this to impress you, but only to kind of use it as a window to get into what the Fleisher Collection is. Because the first question is, how did the Scharwenka come into the Fleisher Collection? And if there is not a chair back there, we've got one for you here. There you go. And there's another one over here. Here, we got you here. So, I'm thinking that, now I don't know for sure, but Edwin Fleisher started collecting music in 1909. And at that time, there was a whole lot less rental music from orchestral publishers than there is now, which is almost ubiquitous, of course. So there was a lot that you could buy in 1909, scores and parts. So he collected the music, but he did not, it was not Fleischer's intention, Edwin A. Fleischer, to start a music collection. What he started was a group called the Symphony Club, and that was an orchestra. Actually, it was a number of orchestras, and he started it was orchestras for young people. The reason being, in Philadelphia at that time, as in, I'm pretty sure throughout the United States, there was no, in the public school system, there was no instrumental music. You had choirs, there were some bands, but as far as instrumental music education wasn't happening, at least in Philadelphia. That really didn't happen until the 20s. And so there was a real need for kids who could play instruments to play in an ensemble, in a large ensemble. So I won't tell you the long story, but he started the Symphony Club. His family had money, he had money, he was an amateur violinist and violist, and he purchased a house in Center City, Philadelphia, this big 5-story brownstone. Now this is more than a row house, it's this huge thing. It goes back like a half a block, if you're familiar with, you know, urban brownstones. And the second or third floor, I think it was the second floor, was a room, you know, like this that went back a long ways, and he took out a couple walls and an orchestra could sit sideways in it, and that's where they played. And he bought all the music for it. And all they did was they read through orchestral literature, because where could you do this? If you were a violinist or you were a trumpet player, you couldn't do it anywhere. So that's what he started, the Symphony Club. As I said, he bought everything he could find. Fast forward to the 20s, 1927, the Free Library of Philadelphia, which at that time was housed in a room or two in Philadelphia City Hall since the 1880s. By 1927, this is how time happens in Philadelphia, they built the Central Library, which really is an amazing building, huge building on the 19th and Vine. And 1927, that happens. 1929 now, Edwin Fleischer gives his then collection of all the music to the Free Library of Philadelphia. It was not just orchestral music, but it was chamber music, it was music scores and books as well. So, also in 1929, Fleischer, with a colleague who spoke some other languages, went to Europe and visited many of the countries in Europe, including the Soviet Union, and he got all of the music that he could buy. And if he couldn't buy it, he went to the publishers and asked them, pleaded them to give him the music. It would not leave the building. It would not be circulated without their permission, but so that he could have, he was building this world's largest orchestral library, and he wanted, and the publishers gave him stuff.